Hey, what's up? It's Kit. Time for another video, and today we'll discuss something quite interesting. And probably we will help out quite a few people there when it comes to differentiating which one's which. Okay? So, we're going to talk about very first thing is that there are lures that are specifically designed for trolling, and there are lures specifically designed for casting. Before we get into that, let's try to define what trolling is and what casting is. Okay, so casting is when you throw the lure as far out as you can and impart an action with either the rod, the reel, or both. Okay, here's a very good example just so we don't get confused. Okay, now when we're talking about popper, okay, when we're talking about popping, this, you need to jerk your rod to make the popper go forward and pop. Okay, it'll make like a bubble trail when you do that. Stick baits, swim, okay, when you do that, that's casting. Okay, now trolling is when you fish from a moving platform, and it doesn't necessarily mean a boat. You could use a kayak, you can use a canoe, okay, and anything that actually moves forward with the lure behind a certain distance, and you're towing the bait. So that's trolling. Okay, now lures come in all different sizes, shapes, running depths. It could get very confusing for a lot of people to differentiate what a casting lure is and what a trolling lure is. Okay, there are, as mentioned before, there are lures that are specifically designed for trolling. Okay, now let's separate the trolling lures and let's separate the casting lures. Okay, so right there, okay, and then there. Okay, now these three are designed specifically for trolling. But if you look at the box, especially with this Rapala CD Magnum, this is a CD14. This is labeled as a casting and trolling lure. And believe it or not, that is true. This is a casting and trolling lure. Okay? This lure is an X-Rap Magnum Extreme, specifically designed for trolling. In fact, this is designed to troll really fast. But the thing is, the very first fish I caught with this lure wasn't trolling it. It was actually, well, I was casting it. So, kind of makes you think there. Okay? Don't worry, I have a point there. Later on, we'll talk more about that. This is a storm. Okay, it's a deep thunder. Small one. They come in bigger sizes. Now, this is a trolling lure, but just, I think late last year, a friend of mine sent me pictures of these lures. And he caught a lot of fish casting these, even the really big ones. Okay, so but they're trolling lures. Okay, they're specifically made trolling lures. Now, this lure is a casting lure. Okay, but it's also one of the best lures you could troll behind a kayak. So, although it is a casting lure, you control it. Okay? In fact, it doesn't get any more of a casting lure than this because it has a weight transfer system that only works when you cast it. So, if it's like that, see how I shook it like that? So there are tungsten balls that actually move forward and make this swim better because the weight has shifted here. When you cast, you hear that? See? So the balls move towards the back to transfer the weight there so that when you cast, it goes farther. So even if it's kind of a lightweight lure, you can cast it quite far. But, like I said, it's probably one of the best lures you could troll behind a kayak. So run heavy minnow, heavy lure, built for casting, okay? But, again, something you could troll behind a kayak. It's the same with this rip and wrap, okay? It's a casting lure that you could troll behind a kayak. X-Wrap Magnum Prey. New lure, heavy, built for casting. This is probably one of the lures that I would just cast with and not troll. X-Wrap Magnum Cast, sister to the Magnum Prey. In fact, they were released about the same time, or at the same time. Something that I would troll behind the kayak if I'm going fast, because it's heavy, it stays, and it's built to actually be retrieved in really fast burns. So with this one, I could probably troll this, but most likely I would cast it. Now, if, take for example, I have it on the rod, I casted it out, and then I see a boil, I'm not even going to retrieve the lure. Okay, I'm just putting it in the holder, paddle or pedal as fast as I can going to the boils, and not reel in, and it'll work. Okay, it's heavy, and it's designed to be reeled in fast. Okay, and I think you kind of know the theme, right? Or you've noticed something. Now, this is a crankbait. It has a really big bill. It dives down deep. It's designed to be cast out far and reeled in, and it goes down deep. Again, something that I would troll when I fish off of a kayak. Okay? These I would probably be more, because they're top water, and I love casting top water, so that's a personal preference. But there are quite a few people that actually troll poppers. Again, poppers, even on a boat. Okay. Now, so which ones are really trolling lures and which ones are really casting lures? Okay. The answer there is quite simple. It depends on your speed. Okay. Most lures can be trolled just as long as you hit the working speed of the lure and not go above it. Now, even these can be trolled. Okay, even these exclusively lures that I only cast with. Okay, with the exception of the popper, which I could probably troll at a faster clip even on a boat. Okay, but most lures, if not all, can be used in a slow-moving craft. So, like, these are some of the best kayak trolling lures right here. Okay? Like right there. For me. Alright? With the exception of our speed demon here. Okay? And these are also some of the best casting lures there are. Now, especially if... Now, have you noticed this? This is the first one that I used actually was a prototype. And it was in this color. And I caught a tuna with it, casting with it. Because I noticed that at 60 grams, and mind you, this is so hydrodynamic, it also means that it's very aerodynamic. So even if it was kind of designed specifically for trolling, I knew I could cast it and I knew that it would go a good distance. Am I going to use it to replace most of my stick baits or poppers? No, of course not. But at that time, the tuna were boiling in front of me and this was already rigged. So I picked up the rod and I cast it out, I reeled it in, and bang. And I also believe that since the fish were feeding on flying fish, this actually fooled it because of the color. But, you know, the best way to determine if they're a specific trolling lure or a casting lure is to actually look at the packet. If it says trolling, more than likely it would be a trolling lure. But it doesn't mean to say that you cannot cast with it, and it doesn't also mean that it's exclusive for trolling only. There are instances where, take for example, a very deep diving Rapala, such as the X-Rap Magnum. The X-Rap Magnum 40, okay, which has a really big bill. It doesn't mean to say that you're only gonna troll with it. If you can, and you're targeting fish that are eating big bait, and if you could cast it with your rod and reel, go ahead and do it, and I betcha it'll work. Okay, so there are perceptions that have proliferated for years that if it's a trolling lure, it's just a trolling lure. In most applications, it might be, but in certain applications, it could be a casting lure. Now, kind of different with casting lures, especially with walk the dog types, okay, because you really need to twitch the rod to make it move the way it's meant to move. So there we go. In a nutshell, that's basically it. There are some lures that you use for casting, but you could use for trolling, because especially on a kayak where you're moving at almost probably the same speed as a fast retrieve, you're essentially doing the same thing, only your delivery is different. So you're not reeling in, but you're actually paddling. So just as long as you're hitting the speed range of the lures, for at least the minimum speed requirement for the lures to work, or even the middle range or the upper range of the lure, if you could just hit that, it'll work. Most lures are designed to work on a straight retrieve. I don't know about other brands, but Rapala, Storm, very simple to use, that they're designed, okay, to have a very consistent action when you cast out and reel. In fact, a lot of people use it just like that, okay? So as long, again, just to recap, most lures, especially with bibs, okay, or lips, just as long as you're hitting the speed that is required to make it work. And you'll know this because when you cast out your lure and when you reel it in, you'll hit that speed. Now on a kayak, when you're moving, okay, just as long as you're hitting that same speed while paddling or pedaling, you could use that casting lure for trolling. Okay? So, I hope this has been something that you've learned from. If you have questions and comments, please drop me a line below. And until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.